What if the most feared species in the galaxy turned out to be the ones everyone thought were helpless? What if the reason no alien empire dared to challenge Earth wasn't because of advanced weapons or superior technology, but something far more terrifying? In the vast darkness of space, where civilizations rise and fall like waves against cosmic shores, there exists one small blue planet that every spacefaring species whispers about in hushed tones. Not because of its beauty, not because of its resources, but because of something that defies all logic and understanding. The humans call it home. The rest of the galaxy calls it forbidden. This is the story of how the greatest military minds in the universe discovered that sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one that doesn't look dangerous at all. Sometimes the apex species is the one that evolved not from strength, but from something far more deadly: the ability to adapt, survive, and turn any situation into an advantage. Prepare yourself for a journey that will shatter everything you thought you knew about power, survival, and what it truly means to be at the top of the food chain. Because when the Galactic Council finally sent their best to investigate this mysterious, primitive world, what they found would change the balance of power in the universe forever. The humans were waiting, and they had been preparing for this moment far longer than anyone could have imagined. Admiral Zephyx had seen every corner of the galaxy during his 300 years of service to the Galactic Council. He had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, commanded fleets that could crack planets, and negotiated peace between species so different they couldn't even breathe the same air. But nothing in his vast experience had prepared him for the mystery that now displayed itself across the holographic projection in his war room. The blue marble floating before him looked innocent enough. Third planet from a young yellow star, covered mostly in water with patches of green and brown land masses. Standard atmospheric composition of nitrogen and oxygen. Gravity slightly higher than galactic average, but well within acceptable ranges for most species. By every measurable standard, it was an unremarkable world that should have been colonized or conquered centuries ago. Yet here it sat, untouched and unclaimed, despite being located along one of the busiest trade routes in the outer spiral arm. "Explain this to me again," Zephyx said to his intelligence officer, a tall, gray-skinned Vorthan named Crix. "Why has no one claimed this system?" Crix shifted uncomfortably, his forearms moving in the nervous gesture his species made when delivering unwelcome news. "Sir, according to our historical records, 17 different empires have attempted to establish a presence in this system over the past 2,000 years. The hegemony of worlds tried first, sending a colonization fleet of 50,000. The Crystalline Collective followed 3 centuries later with mining operations. Then, the warrior clans of Brutax attempted military conquest. And Zephyx prompted when Crix paused. All failed, sir. Complete mission failures. No survivors, no wreckage recovered, no distress signals. The ships simply vanished after entering the system. Zephyx studied the planet more closely. Nothing about it suggested advanced defenses or hidden weapons. Long-range scans showed primitive civilizations scattered across the surface, still using combustion engines and chemical weapons. Their most advanced technology appeared to be nuclear fission, barely capable of reaching their own moon, let alone defending against interstellar threats. "What do we know about the dominant species?" he asked. Crix activated another hologram showing various biological samples collected by long-range probes. The creatures that appeared were bipedal, relatively small, with soft skin and no visible natural weapons. They looked fragile compared to most sentient species. "They call themselves humans," Crix reported. "Carbon-based, average lifespan of less than 100 standard years. No natural armor, weak bite force, poor night vision, limited physical strength compared to galactic norms. They appear to be persistence hunters who evolved on savannas, developing endurance rather than power. And these primitive hunters have somehow repelled 17 major military operations." Zephyx couldn't hide his skepticism. "That's just it, sir. We have no evidence the humans were directly responsible. The disappearances seem to occur before any contact with the surface is established. Something eliminates entire fleets while they're still in space. But our sensors detect no orbital defenses, no weapon platforms, nothing that could threaten a proper warship. Zephyx walked to the main viewing port of his flagship, the Inevitable, a 5-kilometer dreadnought that served as the mobile command center for the Galactic Council's most elite military force. Behind him, 24 officers from different species worked at control stations, monitoring the movements of the largest exploratory fleet ever assembled. 300 ships, representing the finest military technology from across the galaxy, all focused on solving the mystery of one small blue world. Perhaps, suggested Commander Threx, his Brutaxian tactical officer, the previous expeditions encountered some natural phenomenon. Space anomalies, gravitational distortions, solar radiation bursts. This system star appears stable, but appearances can deceive. Possible, Zephyx agreed, though something about that explanation felt incomplete. But 17 different fleets over 2 millennia? Even the most dangerous space phenomena don't maintain that level of consistency. He turned back to the hologram of Earth, watching as the planet slowly rotated on its axis. City lights were visible on the night side, scattered in clusters across the continents. The humans seemed to be in an early industrial phase, nowhere near the technological level required for spaceflight, let alone space combat. Sir, interrupted Lieutenant Saya, the fleet's communications officer. We're receiving multiple signals from the planet. The humans appear to be broadcasting on various frequencies. What kind of signals? Entertainment media, it seems. Music, visual programs, information transmissions. Nothing that suggests they're aware of our presence or consider us a threat. Zephyx felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature controls. 17 military fleets had vanished in this system, yet the inhabitants continued their daily routines as if nothing had ever happened. Either the humans were completely unaware of the disappearances, or they were far more dangerous than they appeared. Begin Phase 1 of the investigation, he ordered. Deploy the reconnaissance drones. Full spectrum scanning, but maintain minimum safe distance. I want to know everything about this system before we risk a single crew member. The next several hours brought a steady stream of data that only deepened the mystery. The reconnaissance drones mapped the entire system without incident, revealing nothing unusual about the planets, asteroids, or cosmic environment. Earth itself proved to be exactly what it appeared, a young world teeming with life, dominated by a species that had only recently discovered electricity. Yet as Zephyx reviewed the data, he began to notice subtle details that troubled him. The human cities were laid out in patterns that seemed almost defensive, with major population centers connected by networks of roads and railways that could facilitate rapid movement of resources and personnel. Their industrial capacity was impressive for their technological level, with massive factories producing everything from transportation vehicles to complex machinery. Most disturbing of all were the weapons. For a species that appeared peaceful in their entertainment broadcasts, the humans had developed an astonishing variety of methods for killing each other. Chemical weapons, biological agents, explosive devices of tremendous power, and delivery systems that could strike targets anywhere on their planet within hours. Admiral, Crix called out, his voice tight with concern. The historical analysis is complete. I think you need to see this. A new hologram appeared, showing a timeline of events in the system over the past 2,000 years. Crix highlighted specific dates when various expeditions had arrived and disappeared. Look at the pattern, Crix said. Each disappearance corresponds with specific developments in human civilization. The hegemony fleet vanished just as humans were mastering ocean navigation. The crystalline collective disappeared when humans developed gunpowder. The Brutax invasion force was lost during their first experiments with flight. Zephyx studied the timeline, feeling pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. Show me the most recent attempt. The Syndicate of Free Traders, 47 years ago. They sent a merchant fleet to establish trade relations. And what were humans doing 47 years ago? Crix's expression darkened. They had just developed nuclear weapons and were beginning to explore space technology. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Every time humanity had achieved a new level of technological sophistication, any aliens in their system had mysteriously vanished. It couldn't be coincidence. Sir, Commander Threx spoke up. Perhaps we should consider the possibility that Earth isn't as primitive as it appears. These humans might have access to technology far beyond what our scans are detecting. Hidden technology capable of destroying entire fleets without leaving traces? Zephyx shook his head. Possible, but unlikely. No, I think we're dealing with something else entirely. He walked back to the viewing port, staring at the distant blue that had become the greatest enigma in galactic history. Somewhere on that small world, primitive humans were going about their daily lives, unaware that the most powerful military force in the galaxy was studying them like a dangerous predator. Or perhaps they were very much aware, and that was exactly what made them so dangerous. Prepare a probe, he ordered finally. Something small, stealth, capable of reaching the surface undetected. I want direct observation of human behavior before we proceed. Sir, Crix protested. Every previous expedition began with reconnaissance. Perhaps we should reconsider this approach. No, Zephyx said firmly. Those expeditions failed because they underestimated what they were facing. We won't make that mistake. If these humans are somehow responsible for 17 military disasters, I intend to learn how before we join their list of victims. As his crew prepared the reconnaissance probe, Zephyx continued to stare at Earth, trying to understand what he was really looking at. In all his years of military service, he had learned to trust his instincts about danger. And, right now, every instinct he possessed was screaming that the innocent-looking blue world hiding in plain sight was the most dangerous place in the galaxy. The probe launched 6 hours later, its advanced stealth systems rendering it invisible to any technology the humans were known to possess. Its mission was simple: observe and report back. What it would discover in the coming days would shatter everything the Galactic Council thought they knew about power, survival, and the true nature of apex predators. But, as the small probe began its journey toward the blue world, Admiral Zephyx couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to learn why sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones that don't look like monsters at all. Dr. Sarah Chun had been tracking unusual orbital debris for 3 weeks when the pattern finally clicked into place. As the lead astrophysicist for the Global Space Monitoring Coalition, she spent her days analyzing thousands of objects that crossed Earth's gravitational sphere. Most were routine: asteroids, defunct satellites, space junk from various human missions. But the object she had been watching defied classification. It moved with purpose, adjusting its trajectory in ways that natural debris simply couldn't. Its composition registered as unknown alloys that didn't match anything in human databases. Most tellingly, it had appeared exactly where her calculations suggested something would need to be positioned for optimal Earth observation. Sarah had been waiting for this day her entire career. She pulled up the classified files on her secure terminal, documents that officially didn't exist but were known to every serious astronomer and physicist on the planet. For the past 60 years, Earth's governments had been quietly preparing for the possibility of extraterrestrial contact, not because they believed in little green men, but because the evidence had become overwhelming that someone was watching. The satellite disappearances had started in 1962, Soviet and American space assets simply vanishing without explanation, their last transmissions showing brief glimpses of massive structures moving through the void beyond human sensor range. The wreckage from these encounters had provided humanity with technological insights decades ahead of what they should have achieved naturally. Reverse engineering alien technology had accelerated human development at an unprecedented pace. Computer systems, materials science, energy production, weapons technology, all had benefited from carefully studied artifacts recovered from deep space. But the real breakthrough had come from understanding the pattern behind the visitations. Every 20 to 50 years, new alien groups arrived in the Sol system. They came with different ship designs, different technologies, different apparent intentions. But they all shared one trait: they never left. Something eliminated them before they could establish any kind of permanent presence, and that something had been helping humanity grow stronger with each encounter. Sarah encrypted her findings and transmitted them through military channels to a bunker complex hidden beneath the Rocky Mountains. Within minutes, her secure phone buzzed with an incoming call. "Dr. Chun, this is General Harrison. How certain are you about your analysis?" 97% confidence, General. The object is definitely artificial, definitely extraterrestrial, and definitely conducting surveillance operations. Based on its positioning and movement patterns, I'd estimate it's gathering comprehensive data on our military installations, population centers, and industrial capacity. Timeline for a larger presence. Sarah checked her calculations again. If the historical pattern holds, we should expect a full expedition within the next 6 months. Probably a large one, given how long it's been since the last visitation. Understood. Prepare a full briefing for the Council. And Dr. Chin? Good work. Humanity owes you a debt. As the call ended, Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and terror. Humanity was about to face its greatest test, but this time they wouldn't be the helpless primitives that the aliens expected to find. 3,000 miles away, in a conference room buried a mile beneath Cheyenne Mountain, 12 individuals representing the most powerful military and intelligence organizations on Earth gathered around a table that had been used for similar meetings 16 times before. Each person in the room carried the weight of humanity's deepest secret. They were not alone in the universe, and they were definitely not helpless. General Patricia Harrison stood at the head of the table, her uniform displaying no rank insignia or identifying marks. Officially, she didn't exist. Unofficially, she commanded the most sophisticated military organization in human history. Ladies and gentlemen, we have confirmation. The Watchers have returned. She activated a holographic display showing Sarah's tracking data, enhanced with additional information from military sensors that the public had no idea existed. The alien probe appeared as a three-dimensional model, its exotic design clearly visible. This is different from previous reconnaissance efforts, Harrison continued. The probe is more advanced, better shielded, and operating for a longer period before the main expedition arrives. We believe we're dealing with a significantly more powerful force than we've encountered before. Colonel Zhang Wei, representing the Pacific Defense Initiative, leaned forward. Have we identified the species? Negative. But preliminary analysis suggests technology levels far beyond anything we've seen. This isn't going to be like the Hegemony Expedition or the Crystalline Collective. We're looking at what might be a Galactic Council operation. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. The Galactic Council was a theoretical organization that humanity had postulated based on artifacts from various alien encounters. If such a body existed, it would command resources that dwarfed anything individual species could deploy. Current status of our defensive preparations? Harrison asked. Dr. James Okafor, the chief scientist for Project Prometheus, activated his own display. All major installations are operational and fully staffed. The Luna-based defense grid came online last month with the new particle beam arrays. Our Mars monitoring station is tracking approach vectors for anything coming from outside the system. Most importantly, the Guardian protocols are ready for activation. The Guardian protocols represented humanity's most closely guarded secret. Over decades of studying alien technology and tactics, human scientists and strategists had developed countermeasures that went far beyond conventional warfare. The protocols weren't just about destroying enemy ships. They were about making the entire Sol system appear to be something it wasn't. Colonel Maria Santos, representing the South American Continental Defense Force, raised a hand. What about civilian preparations? The population management protocols. All news agencies have their modified reporting guidelines, replied Director Rebecca Frost from the Information Management Division. Any unusual astronomical events will be attributed to natural phenomena. Social media monitoring is at maximum sensitivity for any unauthorized disclosures. The cover story infrastructure is ready to deploy. Harrison nodded approvingly. One of the most crucial lessons humanity had learned from previous alien encounters was the importance of maintaining the illusion of primitive innocence. Every piece of evidence suggested that the aliens came to Earth expecting to find helpless savages. That expectation had become humanity's greatest weapon. Timeline for Guardian activation? Harrison asked. We can begin Phase 1 within hours of detecting the main expedition, Okafor replied. Phase 2 requires approximately 48 hours of preparation. Phase 3 can be implemented immediately once the aliens enter the inner system. Estimated casualties? If everything goes according to plan, 0 on our side, complete elimination of the alien force. If complications arise, Okafor paused. We've run the simulations thousands of times. Success probability is 93.7%. The number hung in the air like a sword. Humanity had survived 16 previous alien incursions through a combination of superior tactics, reverse-engineered technology, and carefully maintained deception. But each encounter brought stronger adversaries, and eventually their luck would run out. "What about long-term implications?" asked Admiral Elizabeth Morrison from the Naval Space Command. "If this is a Galactic Council expedition, their disappearance will be noticed. We might face larger reprisals." Harrison's expression hardened. "That's exactly why this operation has to be perfect. We can't leave any survivors, any witnesses, any evidence that might suggest Earth is anything other than a primitive world that poses no threat to anyone." She activated a new display showing Earth from space, overlaid with defensive installations and weapon emplacements that existed in hidden locations around the globe and throughout the solar system. To alien sensors, these installations appeared to be natural geological formations or primitive industrial sites. The reality was far different. "For 60 years, humanity has been preparing for this moment," Harrison said. "Every alien encounter has taught us something new about their capabilities and weaknesses. Every piece of recovered technology has made us stronger. Every successful operation has bought us time to develop better defenses." She looked around the table at faces that carried the weight of their species' survival. "This time, we're not just defending Earth. We're proving that humanity deserves its place in the galaxy, whether the other species know it or not." The meeting continued for another 3 hours as they refined the details of humanity's response. Communication protocols were established, resource allocation was confirmed, and contingency plans were reviewed. By the time the session ended, every person in the room understood their role in what might be the most important military operation in human history. As the participants filed out through different exits, using separate transportation to avoid any pattern that might be detected by alien surveillance, Harrison remained behind to study the tactical displays. Somewhere out there in the darkness of space, an alien admiral was making plans to investigate a primitive world that posed no threat to galactic civilization. That admiral had no idea that the primitives had been studying his kind for decades, learning their weaknesses, preparing countermeasures, and developing strategies that would make the Sol system a graveyard for anyone foolish enough to underestimate the small, soft creatures that called Earth home. The game was about to begin again. But, this time, humanity intended to send a message that would echo across the galaxy. Earth was not available for conquest, colonization, or exploitation. Anyone who tried would simply disappear, leaving behind only another unsolved mystery for the next group of aliens to puzzle over. In the depths of space, Admiral Zefix was about to learn why 17 previous expeditions had vanished without a trace, and why the small blue world that looked so helpless was actually the most dangerous place in the known universe. The probe's first transmission back to Admiral Zefix's fleet changed everything they thought they knew about Earth and its inhabitants. What should have been a routine surveillance mission had uncovered evidence of something that challenged the fundamental assumptions underlying galactic civilization. "This can't be correct," Zefix muttered as he reviewed the data for the 4th time. "Run the analysis again." Commander Threx, his tactical officer, looked equally disturbed as he manipulated the holographic displays. "I've verified the readings 3 times, Admiral. The probe's sensors are functioning perfectly. These humans are not what they appear to be." The evidence was undeniable. While Earth's surface showed a civilization barely capable of reaching their own moon, the probe's deep spectrum analysis had detected energy signatures that shouldn't exist. Fusion reactors operating at efficiency levels that even advanced species struggled to achieve. Particle accelerators built into mountain ranges, disguised as natural geological formations. Most disturbing of all, weapon emplacements scattered throughout the solar system, their energy patterns masked to appear like routine space debris. "Show me the population centers again," Zefix ordered. The hologram shifted to display major Earth cities from various angles. At first glance, they looked exactly as expected, crowded urban areas connected by primitive transportation networks, powered by combustion engines, and basic electrical grids. But the probe's advanced sensors told a different story. "Look at the subterranean structures," Threx pointed out. Every major population center has extensive underground facilities, not simple basements or storage areas, but complex networks that extend for kilometers in every direction. Military installations? Unknown, but the construction shows sophisticated engineering. These aren't caves or natural formations. Someone built them with very specific purposes in mind. Zefix studied the data, trying to reconcile what he was seeing with what they had expected to find. Either humanity had developed far beyond what their surface technology suggested, or someone else was helping them prepare for something. What about the industrial sites? That's where it gets really interesting, Threx said, activating a new display. The probe detected manufacturing facilities producing components that serve no apparent civilian purpose. Exotic materials, precision instruments, weapons systems that are decades ahead of their supposed technological level. The implications were staggering. For centuries, galactic intelligence had classified Earth as a primitive world populated by barely sentient savages who posed no threat to spacefaring civilizations. If these readings were accurate, humanity had been deliberately concealing their true capabilities for generations. Admiral, interrupted communications officer Saya, we're receiving a priority transmission from the probe. It's detected something unusual. The main display shifted to show real-time video feed from the probe's position high above Earth's Pacific Ocean. At first, nothing seemed out of place. Blue water stretched to the horizon, dotted with white clouds and the occasional island. Then, the water began to move in ways that defied natural explanation. What are we looking at? Zefix asked. Unknown, sir. The probe's registering massive movement beneath the ocean's surface, but the displacement patterns don't match any known marine life. As they watched, the ocean surface began to part along a line stretching for hundreds of kilometers. Water flowed away from something rising from the depths, something so large that the probe's sensors couldn't determine its full dimensions. What emerged defied everything they knew about human technology. It was a ship, but calling it a ship was like calling a star a candle. The vessel that breached the Pacific was over 50 kilometers long, its hull composed of materials that bent light around them in ways that suggested mastery of physics beyond anything in the galactic database. Weapon arrays lined its surface, each one capable of output levels that could threaten a battle cruiser. That's impossible, Threx whispered. Humans don't have the technology to build something like that. But, as they continued to watch, more ships began emerging from hidden facilities around the globe. From beneath mountain ranges, from the depths of Earth's oceans, from structures that had been perfectly camouflaged to look like natural terrain. Each vessel was unique in design but shared the same impossible level of technological sophistication. How many? Zefix asked, though part of him didn't want to know the answer. Scanning. Admiral, I'm detecting at least 200 major vessels and thousands of smaller craft. The humans have been building a fleet that could challenge any single species in the galaxy. The pieces of the puzzle suddenly clicked together in Zefix's mind with terrifying clarity. 17 expeditions had vanished in this system over 2,000 years. Each disappearance had coincided with advances in human technological development. The humans hadn't been the victims of mysterious space phenomena or hidden alien guardians. The humans were the guardians, and every alien expedition that had entered their system had become raw material for their advancement. Get me a full tactical analysis, he ordered, his voice steady despite the implications of what they were discovering. I want to know everything about those ships' capabilities. As his crew worked frantically to process the incoming data, Zefix found himself reevaluating every assumption he had made about this mission. The Galactic Council had sent him to investigate the mysterious disappearances in the Sol system, expecting to find either a natural phenomenon or perhaps evidence of an unknown alien presence. Instead, they had discovered something far more disturbing, a species that had been hunting spacefaring civilizations for millennia. Sir, called out Science Officer Vix from her station, the energy readings from those ships are unprecedented. They're using power sources that our best scientists classify as theoretical possibilities. Somehow these primitive humans have mastered technologies that we haven't even figured out how to begin developing. Weapons analysis? Every one of those vessels could destroy our entire fleet single-handedly. The energy output from their main weapon systems exceeds anything in our database by orders of magnitude. Zephyx felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. His fleet represented the combined military might of dozens of species, 300 ships armed with the most advanced weapons in galactic civilization. And, according to his science officer, any one of the human vessels now rising from Earth's surface could annihilate them all. "Admiral," Saya called out urgently, "the probe is being scanned. Multiple targeting systems are locking onto its position." On the main display, the probe's view showed several of the massive human ships turning in its direction. Weapon arrays that had been pointing towards space were swiveling to focus on the small reconnaissance device. The probe's stealth systems, which should have rendered it invisible to any technology humanity was supposed to possess, were clearly useless against whatever scanning methods the humans employed. "Can we withdraw the probe?" "Negative, sir. It's caught in some kind of tractor field. Whatever the humans are using, it's far more sophisticated than our gravitic manipulation technology." As they watched helplessly, the probe was drawn toward one of the enormous human vessels. The ship's hull opened to reveal a docking bay that could have accommodated a dozen Galactic Council cruisers. The probe disappeared inside, and the transmission went dark. "They have our reconnaissance device," Threx observed unnecessarily. "Which means they now know we're here," Zephyx replied, studying the tactical displays with new understanding. "And they know exactly what kind of force they're dealing with." The revelation changed everything. This was no longer an investigation of mysterious disappearances. This was first contact with a species that had been systematically hunting and destroying alien expeditions for thousands of years. A species that had used the technology from those destroyed fleets to advance their own capabilities to a level that threatened the entire galactic order. "Sir," Vix reported, "long-range sensors are detecting additional movement throughout the system. The humans have installations on their moon, on Mars, in the asteroid belt. This isn't just a planetary defense force. They've militarized the entire system. How did galactic intelligence miss this?" "Because they didn't want to be found," Threx realized. Every previous expedition came expecting to find primitives, and never had a chance to report what they actually discovered. The humans have been deliberately maintaining the illusion of helplessness while building an empire that could challenge the Council itself. Zephyx stared at the tactical displays showing human forces throughout the Sol system. Red dots marked weapon platforms, fleet concentrations, and defensive installations that had been invisible until moments ago. The small blue world that had looked so helpless was actually the center of a military complex that dwarfed anything he had ever encountered. "Admiral," Communications Officer Saya announced, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's coming from the vessel that captured our probe." On screen, the holographic display shimmered and resolved into the image of a human female wearing what appeared to be a military uniform. She was small by galactic standards, soft-featured, with no visible natural weapons or armor. She looked exactly like the primitive savages that intelligence reports had described. When she spoke, her words chilled Zephyx to his core. "Greetings, Admiral Zephyx of the Galactic Council Fleet, Inevitable. My name is Admiral Sarah Martinez, Earth Defense Force. We've been expecting you." The human knew his name, knew his ship's designation, knew he represented the Galactic Council, which meant they had been monitoring Council communications for who knew how long. "You seem surprised," the human continued, and Zephyx could swear there was amusement in her voice. "Did you really think 17 expeditions could vanish in our system without us learning something about who was sending them?" The transmission continued with words that would haunt Zephyx for the rest of his life. "We know why you're here, Admiral. You want to know what happened to all those ships, all those crews, all those civilizations that thought Earth would be easy prey. We'll be happy to show you. In fact, we insist on it." The screen went dark, leaving Zephyx and his crew to contemplate the terrifying reality they now faced. They hadn't come to investigate mysterious disappearances. They had walked into a trap that had been prepared for them long before their fleet had ever left port. Somewhere in the depths of space, humanity was about to teach the Galactic Council the same lesson they had taught 17 previous expeditions. Earth was not a primitive world waiting to be conquered. It was a hunter's den, and every species that entered the Sol system became prey. Admiral Zephyx had commanded military operations across half the galaxy, but nothing had prepared him for the strategic nightmare he now faced. Within hours of capturing their reconnaissance probe, The humans had demonstrated capabilities that violated every assumption about primitive civilizations. Now, as his fleet maintained position at the edge of the Sol system, he was forced to confront a terrible truth. They weren't the hunters in this scenario. They were the prey. Status report. He ordered, though part of him dreaded what his officers would tell him. Commander Threx consulted his tactical displays with the grim expression of someone counting tombstones. Admiral, we're detecting movement throughout the system. The humans have activated what appears to be a comprehensive defense network that was completely invisible until now. Show me. The main holographic display transformed into a three-dimensional map of the Sol system that bore no resemblance to the simple planetary arrangement they had expected to find. Red markers indicated weapon platforms, defensive installations, and fleet concentrations that had been perfectly camouflaged until the humans chose to reveal them. The small blue world at the center was surrounded by layers of defenses that would make assaulting it tantamount to suicide. How is this possible? Zephyx asked, studying the overwhelming display of military might. Our intelligence reports showed no evidence of advanced civilization. Because they didn't want us to see it, replied Science Officer Vix, her voice tight with professional amazement and personal terror. Admiral, these humans have been systematically deceiving galactic intelligence for millennia. Every scan, every probe, every long-range observation has been carefully managed to show us exactly what they wanted us to see. Threx highlighted specific installations on the display. Look at these lunar facilities. From a distance, they appear to be natural crater formations. But once you know what to look for, you can see they're actually massive weapon arrays capable of engaging targets throughout the inner system. And this? Zephyx pointed to a cluster of objects in the asteroid belt. Mining operations, according to our original scans. But the energy signatures suggest they're actually manufacturing facilities, probably producing the exotic materials we detected in their ship hulls. The scope of the deception was staggering. For thousands of years, humanity had been building a military infrastructure that rivaled the combined might of the Galactic Council while maintaining the appearance of a primitive species that posed no threat to anyone. Every alien expedition that had entered their system had walked into a trap that had been generations in the making. Admiral, Communications Officer Sia interrupted, we're receiving another transmission from the human fleet. The image of Admiral Martinez appeared again, and this time Zephyx could see the bridge of her vessel in the background. The technology visible behind her was sleek, advanced, and completely unlike anything humanity was supposed to possess. Crew members moved with the efficiency of a species that had been fighting interstellar wars for centuries. Admiral Zephyx, Martinez said, I believe you're beginning to understand your situation. However, before we proceed, I think it's important that you understand exactly what you're dealing with. Consider this an educational opportunity. The transmission shifted to show historical footage that made Zephyx's blood run cold. Ancient ships from various galactic civilizations appeared on screen, clearly recognizable despite the passage of centuries. He watched in horror as human vessels engaged and destroyed fleets from the hegemony of worlds, the Crystalline Collective, the warrior clans of Brutax, and a dozen other expeditions that had vanished in this system. Each of these expeditions came to Earth expecting to find helpless primitives. Martinez continued as the footage showed battle after battle. Each one learned too late that humans are not primitive, not helpless, and definitely not easy prey. The tactics displayed in the footage were sophisticated beyond anything Zephyx had expected. Human forces used the gravity wells of planets and moons to achieve impossible maneuvers, employed stealth technology that rendered their ships invisible until the moment they struck, and coordinated attacks across multiple star system bodies with precision that spoke of centuries of practice. Notice how we've adapted our strategies over time, Martinez pointed out as the footage shifted to more recent encounters. Each expedition taught us something new about galactic military doctrine. Each captured ship provided us with technological advances. Each defeated enemy made humanity stronger. The final piece of footage showed the most recent previous expedition, a syndicate trading fleet that had arrived 47 years earlier. Zephyx watched as massive human vessels emerged from hidden installations throughout the system, surrounding the alien ships in a coordinated operation that left no possibility of escape or survival. 17 expeditions over 2,000 years, Martinez said as the transmission returned to her image. 17 opportunities to learn about galactic civilization, to study alien technology, to understand the threats humanity would eventually face when we were ready to claim our place among the stars. Zefix found his voice despite the shock of what he had witnessed. You've been using us. Using every species that entered your system as test subjects. We've been learning from you, Martinez corrected. Every civilization that came to Earth brought knowledge we needed. Ship designs, weapon technologies, navigation systems, communication protocols. You've been unknowingly providing humanity with a complete education in galactic warfare. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just been defending themselves from alien invaders. They had been conducting the most comprehensive military intelligence operation in galactic history, using the hubris and assumptions of advanced civilizations against them. What do you want? Zefix asked. Martinez smiled, and the expression was far from reassuring. What we want, Admiral, is to demonstrate something to the Galactic Council. For too long, your organization has treated inhabited worlds as resources to be exploited or conquered. You arrive in star systems belonging to other species and simply take whatever you want, assuming that technological advancement gives you the right to rule over those you consider primitive. That's not dash. That's exactly how galactic civilization operates, Martinez interrupted. The strong dominate the weak, the technologically advanced enslave or eliminate the primitive, and entire species are classified as expendable based on their development level. Well, Admiral, humanity is here to inform the galaxy that those days are ending. The transmission shifted again, this time showing the true scope of human military capabilities. Fleets of massive warships filled the screen, their numbers exceeding anything Zefix had imagined possible. Manufacturing facilities that could produce starships at an industrial scale. Weapon technologies that represented evolutionary leaps beyond anything in the galactic database. For 2,000 years, we've been preparing for this moment, Martinez explained. We've studied your technologies, learned your tactics, identified your weaknesses. We've built a military force specifically designed to defeat galactic civilization using your own methods against you. You're talking about war against the entire galaxy. We're talking about liberation, Martinez corrected. Liberation of every species that's been conquered, enslaved, or exterminated by civilizations that believed superior technology gave them unlimited power over others. Humanity is going to change the rules of galactic civilization, Admiral, and your fleet is going to help us deliver that message. Zefix felt the trap closing around him like a physical force. His 300 ships, the pride of the Galactic Council's military might, were surrounded by human forces that outnumbered them 10 to 1 and possessed technology that made his vessels obsolete. But, beyond the immediate tactical situation, he was beginning to understand the larger strategic catastrophe. How long, he asked quietly. How long have we been planning this? Since the first alien ship entered our system, and we realized we weren't alone. How long until we're ready to take our message to the galaxy? We're ready now, Admiral. We've been ready for decades. We were just waiting for the right moment, the right target, the right opportunity to announce humanity's presence to the galaxy in a way that no one could ignore. The transmission paused, and Martinez leaned forward with an expression of predatory satisfaction. Your fleet represents the largest force ever sent to investigate the Sol system. When the Galactic Council learns what happened to their elite expedition, when they try to understand how 300 of their finest ships could simply vanish, they'll finally begin to grasp what they're really dealing with. Admiral, Threx whispered urgently, long-range sensors are detecting hyperspace distortions. The humans are moving additional fleets into position around the system perimeter. Zefix looked at the tactical displays and realized they were completely surrounded. Human forces were emerging from hiding places throughout the star system, revealing the true scope of their military buildup. This wasn't just a defensive operation. It was a demonstration of power that would reshape galactic politics forever. You have two choices, Admiral Zefix, Martinez said, drawing his attention back to the transmission. You can surrender your fleet intact and allow your crews to witness humanity's true capabilities before we send you home with a message for the Galactic Council. Or you can attempt to fight your way out and join the 17 previous expeditions in becoming raw material for our continued advancement. Those aren't really choices. No, Martinez agreed, they're not. But we're giving you the opportunity to choose how this ends for your people. Surrender, and your crews will survive to carry word back to the galaxy about what Earth really is. Fight, and they'll simply become the latest addition to our fleet strength. Zephyx looked around his bridge at officers who had served with him for decades, trusted professionals who had followed him into battles across the galaxy. They were looking to him for a decision that would determine not just their fate, but possibly the fate of galactic civilization itself. The humans had been planning this moment for 2,000 years. They had studied every aspect of galactic military technology, learned the weaknesses of every species, and built a war machine specifically designed to defeat the combined might of the Galactic Council. And now they were ready to announce their presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible, by demonstrating that the species everyone thought was primitive could destroy any force that challenged them. The trap had been set centuries before his fleet ever left port, and now it was closing around them with the inexorability of a collapsing star. The choice Admiral Zephyx made in that moment would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. Faced with the overwhelming reality of humanity's true capabilities and the complete futility of resistance, he did something that no Galactic Council admiral had ever done before. He surrendered unconditionally to a species that galactic civilization considered primitive. "Admiral Martinez," he said, his voice carrying across the communication link with the weight of defeat, "the Galactic Council fleet inevitable hereby surrenders to Earth Defense Forces. We request safe passage for our crews and the opportunity to witness whatever demonstration you wish to make." The silence that followed stretched for several seconds before Martinez responded. "A wise decision, Admiral. You and your crews will be treated according to the standards of civilized warfare, which I suspect are considerably higher than what your own forces typically employ when dealing with supposedly inferior species." The process of surrendering a galactic military fleet to humanity proved to be unlike anything in Zephyx's experience. Human vessels approached each council ship with precision that spoke of tactics refined over centuries of practice. Boarding parties armed with weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics took control of critical systems while treating the alien crews with a professionalism that was both impressive and deeply unsettling. Within hours, Zephyx found himself aboard the human flagship, a vessel so massive that his own dreadnought could have fit in its cargo bay. As he was escorted through corridors lined with technology that defied galactic understanding, he began to grasp the true scope of humanity's achievement. "Remarkable, isn't it?" Admiral Martinez commented as she personally guided him through the ship. 2,000 years of reverse engineering alien technology, combined with human ingenuity and our species' particular talent for warfare. We've built something that your best scientists probably consider theoretically impossible. They passed through sections where human technicians worked alongside equipment clearly derived from dozens of different alien civilizations. Zephyx recognized control systems from his own species, weapon technologies from the Brutax clans, propulsion methods from the Crystalline Collective. The humans had taken the best innovations from every expedition they had destroyed and integrated them into a unified technological base that surpassed anything individual species had achieved. "You've been planning this for centuries," he observed. "Millennia," Martinez corrected. "From the moment our astronomers confirmed that we weren't alone in the universe, humanity began preparing for the day when galactic civilization would notice us. We knew that contact would eventually come, and we knew it wouldn't be peaceful. Your own history shows what happens when technologically advanced civilizations encounter supposedly primitive ones." They entered an observation deck that provided a panoramic view of human forces throughout the Sol system. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. Hundreds of vessels moved in formations that demonstrated tactical sophistication beyond anything in galactic military doctrine. Each ship was unique, representing innovations and improvements developed over centuries of studying alien technology. Every expedition that entered this system taught us something valuable. Martinez explained as they watched the fleet maneuvers. The hegemony showed us the importance of massive firepower. The crystalline collective taught us about energy shields and defensive systems. The Brutax clans demonstrated the value of aggressive tactics and rapid deployment. And now you're going to use those lessons against the entire galaxy. We're going to use them to change the galaxy, Martinez corrected. For too long, galactic civilization has operated on the principle that might makes right. Advanced species conquer primitive ones, take their resources, enslave their populations, and justify it all by claiming technological superiority equals moral authority. Zephyx watched as human vessels demonstrated capabilities that shouldn't exist. Ships moving through space using propulsion systems that appeared to violate fundamental laws of physics. Weapon arrays that could probably crack planets. Defensive shields that seemed to absorb energy attacks and redirect them back at attackers. What you're proposing will destroy the current galactic order, he said. The current galactic order deserves to be destroyed, Martinez replied without hesitation. A civilization that classifies entire species as expendable based on their development level has forfeited any claim to moral legitimacy. Humanity is going to introduce a new principle to galactic politics: leave others alone or face the consequences. The demonstration that followed would be talked about in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. Human forces conducted exercises that showcased technologies and tactics that redefined what was possible in space warfare. Stealth systems that could make entire fleets invisible. Weapons that could strike targets across interplanetary distances with perfect accuracy. Defensive installations that could withstand anything in the galactic arsenal. But the most impressive demonstration wasn't technological. It was tactical. The humans showed how they had studied galactic military doctrine and developed countermeasures for every standard strategy employed by advanced civilizations. They had identified the fundamental weaknesses in how galactic forces operated and built their entire military philosophy around exploiting those vulnerabilities. Admiral, one of Zephyx's officers whispered as they watched human vessels execute maneuvers that should have been impossible. They're not just more advanced than us. They're more advanced than us specifically. Every weapon system, every tactic, every strategic principle has been designed to defeat galactic civilization. It was true. Humanity hadn't just developed superior technology. They had developed technology specifically engineered to counter everything the galaxy could deploy against them. After 2,000 years of studying alien warfare, they had built the perfect anti-galactic military force. There's something else you need to understand, Martinez said as the demonstrations concluded. This isn't just about Earth anymore. We've been in contact with other species throughout the galaxy. Civilizations that have been conquered or enslaved by the so-called advanced worlds. They've been waiting for someone strong enough to challenge galactic authority. New displays showed star maps highlighting systems throughout the galaxy where human influence had already spread, not through conquest or colonization, but through quiet assistance to species that wanted to resist galactic domination. Humanity had been building a network of allies while maintaining their facade of primitive isolation. You've been interfering with galactic politics for decades, Zephyx realized. We've been supporting the right of species to self-determination, Martinez replied. Every time the Galactic Council decided to subjugate another civilization, we made sure they had the tools to resist. Every time an advanced species tried to exploit a primitive world, we provided those primitives with ways to defend themselves. The scope of the operation was staggering. While galactic intelligence had classified Earth as an irrelevant backwater, humanity had been quietly undermining the entire structure of galactic civilization. They had been the invisible hand behind dozens of successful resistances to galactic expansion. What happens now? Zephyx asked. Now you go home, Martinez said simply. You and your crews return to the Galactic Council with a message. Earth is no longer available for conquest, colonization, or exploitation. Neither is any other world that chooses to align with humanity. The age of advanced civilizations bullying primitive ones is over. The Council won't accept that. Then, the Council will learn the same lesson that 17 previous expeditions learned in this system, Martinez replied with cold certainty. The difference is that this time, we won't be content to simply defend our home system. If the Galactic Council wants a war, we'll bring that war to every system they control. The message they recorded for transmission to galactic leadership was simple and devastating. Footage of human military capabilities, tactical demonstrations that prove their superiority over galactic forces, and a clear statement of humanity's new position in galactic politics. Earth was no longer a primitive world to be ignored. It was the center of a new power that could challenge anyone who threatened peaceful species throughout the galaxy. But the most important part of the message wasn't what humanity said. It was what they had already done. For 2,000 years, they had been systematically studying and defeating every force sent against them. They had built a military machine specifically designed to counter galactic civilization. And they had done it all while maintaining the appearance of helpless primitives. As Zephix's fleet prepared to depart the Sol system under human escort, he understood that he was carrying more than just a message back to the Galactic Council. He was carrying proof that the balance of power in the galaxy had fundamentally shifted. The species that everyone had dismissed as irrelevant had become the most dangerous force in known space. The 17 expeditions that had vanished in the Sol system hadn't been destroyed by mysterious phenomena or unknown aliens. They had been systematically hunted and eliminated by a species that had spent millennia preparing for this moment. And now that same species was ready to extend their protection to every world that wanted freedom from galactic domination. The age of human isolation was over. The age of human ascendancy had begun. As his ship crossed the boundary of the Sol system under human supervision, Admiral Zephix looked back at the small blue world that had changed everything. Earth no longer appeared primitive or helpless. It looked like what it had always been, the home of humanity, the most successful predator species in galactic history. Behind him, human fleets were already departing for destinations throughout the galaxy, carrying a message that would reshape interstellar civilization forever. The hunt was over. Earth had won. And now it was time for the rest of the galaxy to learn what that meant for the future of every species among the stars. The primitives had become the apex predators, and the galaxy would never be the same.